Ordinary Council meeting of WA Regional Council. I advise this meeting is being streamed live to the internet. All those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements, and upon joining these online meetings, you accept the condition that your image may be recorded and streamed to the internet, as well as being retained in the archive of the recorded council meetings and standing committee meetings. I now open the 27 April 2023 Ordinary Council meeting of Council, the time being 5:31. Can I ask Councillor Wright to do the prayer, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. O God, grant that by the knowledge of thy will, all we may resolve shall work together for good. And we pray through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Burns, could I have you do the acknowledgement of country, please?
Thank you. Is this on?
They're all on all the time.
Yeah, they're all on screen.
Thank you. Through the mother Makatana Jang Maran Yanini Naramang Tabagawarari, Vilawarari, Mangawarari. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Next item on the agenda is CCL 23/90, leave of absence. All councillors are here tonight, including Councillor Mann coming in remotely, so no need for that item. Next item is CCL 23/91, conflicts of interest. Can I have Councillor Goff want to declare a conflict of interest?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was from the committee meeting. Front of me, sorry. Board of the Corporate Services Committee, talking about the partnership program, as my business is part of the partnership program, and I'll be staying in the room.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Ms Kumar, you want to declare a conflict?
I'd like to declare a conflict with agenda item CCL 2398. It's non-pecuniary and significant. This is because my daughter is a student at the Macquarie Conservatorium. However, I will stay in the room.
Thank you, Ms Kumar. Are there any other conflicts of interest to be declared by councillors or staff? Being none, I'll move on to the next item. Next item is CCL 23/92, Public Forum. I've got 2 speakers registered for public forum, and then we will have time at the end of that to ask anyone else that wants to come forward to speak. And just I'll give the rules for everyone before we start. So you've got 5 minutes for public forum. When I call your name, just come forward to the microphone, state your name, and just a brief agenda item or some summary of what you're going to talk about. At 4 minutes 30, I've got a bell here. At 4 minutes 30, I'll give you a single ding. And at 5 minutes, I'll ring it continuously so you can't keep speaking. and then we'll move on to the next item or the next speaker. It's not designed for a Q&A or a back and forth with councillors. It's really just for you to put your point forward or your views forward. So the first person that's registered is Mr. Bruce Bryant. And can I have Mr. Bryant come forward, please? And you've got the microphone there. Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Thank you, Council, to give the opportunity to speak here. I live at 9 Caves Road, Wellington. It's a reference to the development application 9 for 12 Caves Road. I'm a licensed real estate stock station agent, just of the peace, and I have been practising for 37 years, lived in Caves Road for 29. This development, to my way of thinking, down the Caves Road goes back to September 2020. When I raised issues with the council. There was a DA approved for an existing building was there. It was occupied before the occupancy certificate was issued. It was finished, then they started to build a shed. And in the meantime, I'd been to see the previous mayor in Councillor Goff's coffee house. She wasn't in the council at that point in time, but she did know why I was there. Numerous occasions to see the previous mayor to tell him what was going on down there. Anyway, so never heard anything from the mayor, left my business card. That was all right. Anyway, then this shed commenced. And over time, sewage went in, more doors, more windows, then occupation. So I complained numerous times to the council. They did inspection, decided nobody lived there. Well, that was completely wrong. My wife comes home from the jail at 8 o'clock at night, could see the lights on in the building. Numerous council workers go up and down the Caves Road every day. They could have told you there was people living in that shed. But and in June 21, I took photos of 2 sets of mailboxes at the 2 dwellings, both with the same number on them, and they were getting a garbage service at each mailbox. Anyway, over time, the mailbox on the one you're discussing tonight disappeared, and the garbage bins all moved up to the previous one. Anyway, so that was that. 2 garbage bins at both sites. Anyway, I had Nicole Gretchen, who was the ombudsman. She came down and I drove her around the property. Anyway, she produced a letter saying that I should go and talk to my neighbours and sort out a long-term dispute. I've never ever met the neighbours, never shaken their hands, so how could I have a dispute with them? My dispute was with the council saying nobody lived there. Anyway, the mayor wasn't the mayor of the council at that point in time. I contacted him and I sent him Nicole Gretchen's email. And his reply was, email to me, this was the second less satisfactory response I have seen from Nicola of recent lately. And he stated in this email, the culture in this council was poor. So anyway, that's another thing. All neighbours could see the lights. I've spent $1,900 trying to get legal advice to keep writing to council to prove that there was people living there. Council never ever responded to say that there was, except Councillor Ivey did admit to me down the track that there has been people living there and they're going to apply to get a development application. I'm not worried about the development application, but the way council treated my family and all our neighbours, you know, I tried to speak to the mayor at the sale yards the other day and I'm doing up the shoelace and he said kept walking. I couldn't walk. But anyway, that's irrelevant. I got no more to say. I don't need the 5 minutes, but yeah, it's just atrocious the way that we were treated and all the neighbours down there, and they were living there for a long period of time. Thank you very much for your time. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, Mr Bryant. The next speaker registered is Mr Nicholas Broadbent. If you come forward, please, Mr Broadbent. And the same process.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, as you're aware, I'm the chair of the board of the Macquarie Conservatorium, the only not-for-profit conservatorium providing a range of high-quality music education and performance programs for people of all ages in our regional community. I'm addressing you in relation to item CCL 23/98 in the Council's meeting papers, and in particular, the committee's proposed resolutions that Council gives permissions to the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate a commercial lease for council building with the Macquarie Conservatorium for a maximum period of 5 years, and that Council offer an interest-free loan for the purpose of a fit-out of any building offered to the Macquarie Conservatorium to be repayable over a 5-year period equal to annual repayments to the maximum loan value of $500,000. Councillors, I'm speaking against those proposed resolutions and inviting Council to approach this issue differently. That is, via a resolution for a lease for the Carpet Court building for a period of some 10 years and with some consideration given to peppercorn rent. The Con would fit this location out itself and at its own expense, utilising the cash that it has saved over many years for this purpose. We would improve Council's building and ask for nothing more than security of tenure and a chance for the Conservatorium, which I'd suggest to you as an important community enterprise, a chance to thrive, to build its programs and expand its reach. We are a not-for-profit entity, as you know. Survival alone does not lend itself to expansion and to success. As we've said, it's a requirement of our funding agreement with the New South Wales Government that we have premises from which to operate. Importantly, though, our funding is for program delivery only. It does not provide us with the means to compete for and occupy commercial premises. The resolution, as currently proposed, would likely play out as follows: that the Con would spend its available funding either now or at the conclusion of an interest-free loan term on fitting out a property to permit quality music education to take place at a reasonable cost. All the while, it would be paying a commercial rate of rent, which would far exceed the average income in the period between 2012 and the start of COVID, which I'd suggest to you all is the far more appropriate benchmark to consider. We've provided you with those figures. Councillors will have seen the figures and the average yearly profit during that period. Such a course would leave the Con mired in uncertainty and in a permanent state of insecurity, if not in a state of financial calamity, potentially on the brink of it. I want to say that the Con has been extremely grateful for the time and attention that each of you as councillors have given this matter. You hopefully by now all know the history of the issue, and we've appreciated the different perspectives brought by each of you and your thoughtful questions. We would venture to say that a thriving conservatorium brings benefits to the whole of Dubbo, regardless of one's interests or pursuits, be they in the benefits of music generally for our community, the flow-on benefits of music education on other aspects of children's learning, the opportunity for children from all parts of our community, including low-income families, to have access to formal music education that would otherwise be unattainable, the advancement of Dubbo as a regional cultural hub, the economic benefits arising from the ability of quality music education to attract families of skilled workers, or at least make them think twice before moving somewhere else. Livability is important in Dubbo. The con is important to Dubbo. Now, we as a board fully acknowledge the competing priorities of council. As with any competing priorities, a choice presents itself. That choice is always predicated on asking, what is the value proposition in this? And I hope that I've been able to highlight some of those value propositions to you. Ultimately, questions of choice and priorities are decisions for your best judgment. We've put our case as highly as we can. It must be recalled, we are a not-for-profit entity. We would not be here if we did not need to be. We have ideas and we are innovative, and we would like to implement those ideas, but we need a venue, we need security of tenure, and we need a place to thrive. Thank you very much for your attention. We look forward to your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Broadbent. As part of our code of meeting practice, we have additional time in our public forum section. So if anyone else from the forum would like to come forward and speak, they have an opportunity to do so now. Okay, no one else. Thank you. I'll move on to the next item, CCL 23/93, confirmation of minutes. Can someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Seconded by Councillor Burns. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCL 23/94, mayoral appointments and meetings. Have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Wells. Seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Any discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 23/95, clause 4.6, varying development standards update. Can someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Black, seconded by Councillor Wright. Any discussion or debate? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 23/96, status of notices of motion. Can I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury, seconded by Councillor Burns. Discussion or, actually, sorry, Councillor Chowdhury would like to speak to that.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Only to note on page 47 of the papers, there was the report, how notice of motion went on, what was it, just from memory, it was on public spaces and sporting facilities, public land. I remember reading that report in the Hub, very comprehensive report, and it was limited to spaces over 8 hectares. I'll be asking, just to note, I'll be asking for spaces between 4 and 8 hectares. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Any other questions or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, report of the Infrastructure Planning and Environment Committee, CCL 23/97. Thank you, Councillor Black. Moved, seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Black, do you wish to make any comment or speak to that? Okay, no save and accept from councillors? No? Okay, sorry, Councillor Chowdhury?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask a question through you. The update of fluoride. Can I ask? Oh,
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Through you, Mr CEO, to Mr Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So since the Infrastructure Planning and Environment Committee meeting that we held 2 weeks ago, there's been some administrative work done in the background. So as you may recall, we have to get concurrence from the Department of Health to install a fluoride dosing system. So Public Works, who are acting on our behalf in terms of the project management of a particular project, submitted all the full documentation on the 17th of April So that's been considered. There's been a little bit of to and fro, just some minor technicalities that we're working on. But I have been in contact with the manager of that assessment unit, so approval is imminent. Just need to look at some of these little, for example, the dosing point, just so that we can actually monitor that. So we've got easy access to that. So there's just some of those minor little tweaks. So yeah, we're expecting approval for that quite soon. And we've also had Public Works prepare the contract documentation as well. So that's running in parallel. So we're hoping by the end of next week, we've got an answer in terms of being able to engage.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
It's all on that, Mr. Shadow, Councillor Shattery? Yes. Anything further, councillors? No, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is a report of the Culture and Community Committee. Councillor Goff.
I move that the report of the Culture Community meeting held on the 13th of April be adopted, save and accept items CCC 23/18 and CCC 23/19, which will be dealt with separately.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Seconded by Councillor Shattery. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on the rest of the committee meeting, councillors? None. I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Now, specifically in relation to CCL 23/18, Councillor Goff, you don't wish to move that one, presumably. You'd rather some other councillor. So, Councillor Wright, CCL 23/18 moved out of that report, seconded by Councillor Shattery. Councillor Goff, Councillor Wright, do you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, obviously the matter before us here regarding the Conservatorium of Music has been a rather contentious one. Obviously, we've heard from the public gallery. There's been a lot of discussion in the community with respect to it. To have this motion moved and on the table before each of these councillors today to have a discussion with regards to it is certainly is in the best interest of this group and the community, and obviously to come up with some form of resolution or solution for both parties is something that I think is really important. So, I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Other speakers on the motion before us? Councillor Goff.
I just have an alternative motion.
So what you would have to do at this stage, Councillor Goff, if there's something that directly contradicts that, you would need to foreshadow that motion, and you can read out the foreshadowed motion so the councillors know what you're thinking. And I'll hear the motion first to see whether we can have an amendment or whether it needs to be the first one needs to be defeated first as a foreshadow. So just read out that if you'd like to, or paraphrase it if you want at this stage. Or you can just paraphrase in terms of your intention so that if you want something that's going to directly contradict the first motion, you would encourage your fellow councillors to defeat the first motion and then your foreshadowed motion. But again, you can paraphrase it if you wish. You have to read it out word for word. Okay, that's fine.
My alternative motion, that the council delegates authority to the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate the terms of the lease agreement for the Macquarie Conservatorium to occupy 139 Darling Street, including a peppercorn lease for the period of 5 years with an option of additional 5-year term. B, that the lease amount be reviewed at the end of the initial 5-year period. And C, increases in the income of the Macquarie Conservatorium will generate a proportional increase in annual lease fee during the additional 5-year term. And D, that the Macquarie Conservatorium be responsible for the outgoings under the lease agreement, including but not limited to utilities, outfit, repairs and maintenance upon agreed arrangement. 2, that be noted that the lease agreement is below market value and therefore can be considered as a financial assistance grant to the Macquarie Conservatorium under S 358 of the Local Government Act of 1993. 3, that any necessary documents in relation to this matter be executed under the Common Seal of Council. And 4, that it is noted that the preferred location of the Macquarie Conservatorium is part of a cultural hub and that Dubbo Regional Council is considering in strategic analyst to be located adjacent to and including the Western Plains Cultural Centre, Dubbo.
So thank you, Councillor Goff. So given the fact that that's a direct negative of the current recommendation that's been moved by Councillor Wright in relation to commercial rent versus peppercorn rent, then I'll leave that as a foreshadowed motion, and so we can continue to debate and discuss this. And if you're in favour of Councillor Goff's motion, then what you would do is you would defeat this motion that's before us at the moment, and then we could have an alternative motion moved. So further discussion and debate on the existing motion that's been moved by Councillor Wright. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I voted against this motion that's on the books at the moment 2 weeks ago at the committee meetings, along with Councillor Goff, and I'm proud to say that I did. Looking again at this motion during the last fortnight and speaking to various people, this would, and we've seen it in emails to councillors, effectively, will seal the fate of the slow death of the conservatorium. They really aren't in a position to pay full commercial market rent for a premises. Really, the state government is to blame for being in this position. They should have come to the party and provided a permanent residence for the conservatorium, which I'll remind everyone teaches music mostly to school kids around in Dubbo and Surrounds. It's a not-for-profit, as we've heard. So I really would encourage people to vote against this motion and have a look at Councillor Goff's motion in a minute, because I think we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Other speakers in relation to the motion before us at the moment, councillors? Further speakers? Councillor Wright, you have a right of reply.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the foreshadowed motion by Councillor Goff seems to resonate, I believe, with some thoughts around some of the other councillors after having some loose discussions with us over the last couple of weeks. So I think that may tell the tale when it comes to voting here in a moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. So we have the motion before us at the moment in our recommendation from the committees from 2 weeks ago. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that lost. And now, Councillor Goff, if you'd like to move your alternative motion, which I'll get you to read out again, sorry, so that as you're formally moving that motion.
My alternative motion: 1, that council delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate the terms of the lease agreement for the Macquarie Conservatorium to occupy 139 Darling Street, Dubbo, including a peppercorn lease for a period of 5 years with an option of an additional 5-year term. B, that the lease amount be reviewed at the end of the initial 5-year period. And C, increases in income of the Macquarie Conservatorium will generate a proportional increase in annual leave. That sentence doesn't even make sense. Generate a proportional increase in annual lease fee during the additional 5-year term. And D, that the conservatorium be responsible for all outgoings under the lease agreement, including but not limited to utilities, fit out, repairs and maintenance on the agreed arrangement. 2, that it be noted the lease amount is below market value and therefore will be considered as a financial assistance grant to the Macquarie Conservatorium under S356 of the Local Government Act 1993. 3, that any necessary documentation in relation to this matter be executed under the Common Seal of Council. And 4, that it be noted that the preferred location for the Macquarie Conservatorium is part of a cultural hub that Dubbo Regional Council is considering in a strategic analysis to be located adjacent to and including the Western Plains Cultural Centre in Dubbo.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Councillor Goff?
Yes, please. I'm really proud to put this motion forward. I truly believe music education is very important, and if you want to develop a cultural hub in Dubbo, a conservatorium is a must. I just want to state that it's very disappointing that the state government hasn't come to the party and the public and the Department of Education.
Councillor Goff. Other speakers on this motion? Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to make some comments around last fortnight in the other committee meeting. I voted the other way, but have been able to do some further research and looking at some of the questions I'd asked a fortnight ago around participation of Aboriginal students in in the con, and was really pleased to see some of the statistics that were presented to councillors around, you know, the high percentage of Aboriginal students that use the facility. Not only that, I've also recently been able to, speaking to somebody on Anzac Day around their recent, well, not recent, that they were able to join the con at a later age in life, which I think is really a great opportunity for a person who may be retired from work and then start to do explore their musical interests and talents. So I just wanted to share that with this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Shattery.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a bit favor of this notice of motion, and thank you, Councillor Goff brought this again. And I think the con is playing a vital role within our community. And in the report fortnightly back, when he said we have seen other council also playing helping the con in different ways. So I think that I know this is a state government job, but as a councillor, we need to moral support this organization to make sure our kids are learning music within this Darbour region. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shattery. Councillor Ivey.
Mr. Mayor, can I just seek a point of clarification, I guess? In the motion, it refers to point 1, part C, that increases in revenue will be passed on, the con may receive will be passed on to a proportional increase in the rent, as I gather. But it's a peppercorn rent. So do I take a peppercorn rent being $1? And so really that any adjustment by what income the con might receive is a bit meaningless. Apply a 10% increase to a $1 peppercorn, so the rent goes up to $1.10. I don't know that was, if my reading of that is correct, then I think that point C should be struck out of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. I'm happy to go through to Councillor Goff, but just to answer one question there, my understanding of peppercorn is typically $1 or a token amount. It would be a very small amount. So in that wording there, as Councillor Goff put it, proportional, that would make sense what you're saying on a technical basis, but I'm happy to go to the mover of the motion to just get further clarification on your thoughts behind that and whether we need to reword that ever so slightly. Councillor Goff, so do you want to explain further?
Can we take out point C, please?
So just give me a second. So point C was increases in income. The conservatorium will generate a proportional increase in annual lease fees. So you want to remove that altogether? Okay, so as a mover of the motion, you can remove that. And as a seconder of the motion, Councillor Shattery, you seconded. So you've got to agree to that being removed if you're happy with that to be removed.
Yes, I'm happy.
Okay, so the motion is now, as was read by Councillor Goff, with removal of any proportional increase in the annual lease fee. So Councillor Ivey, you want to continue now?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask for one more clarification following on from that then?
Sure.
Point B, though, 1B still says that the rent will be reviewed after 5 years. Is that the terms of the rent will be reviewed after 5 years?
That's what it says in the motion from Councillor
Yes.
Goff, that the lease amount be reviewed at the end of the initial 5-year period.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Well, in that case, then, can I speak to the motion?
You can.
Look, I echo the thoughts of the fellow councillors that have gone before me. I think that the show of support that this council can give towards the con and culture in this area generally is very important. Look, in the scheme of things, really, it's not a lot of money. I mean, I know it's the council is foregoing the opportunity rent of that building, but in relation to the value that the con provides to the community, in relation to the value of the money that the state government puts in of $450,000 a year, our contribution is not really so great. I think that it's much more important, though, that although the amount in proportion to what the state government puts in is not high, it's the principle of the fact that we are supporting culture and the development of the social fabric of our area. Look, we're well known as a sporting area. We've produced some fantastic sportsmen. We've got fantastic sport facilities. We're not so well known for some of our cultural products, and I think this is a way perhaps we can help develop that. I'd also like to perhaps use it down the track a little bit as a lever against both the con and the state government and the federal government, for that matter, to saying, listen, this council has supported music in particular, arts and culture generally in this region for a while. We think the con is a fantastic institution. It's worthy of support. State government, how about you help them find some money or get some money for them so that they can find a permanent location? And if that permanent location can be incorporated into the cultural and the development area which we are looking at around the Western Plains Cultural Centre, I think that would be fantastic. Alternatively, if for whatever reason that it's not appropriate that the con move to the cultural centre, the Western Plains Cultural Centre precinct, then really where the Carpet Court building is probably does lend itself to development as an adjunct to the entertainment, the regional entertainment centre. And so I think that really gives us the option over the next sort of 5 years, and I think with pressure on the con and pressure from this council, we do develop that strategic plan and we try to get some money via the con to provide them with a permanent resident in one of those two places. Thank you.
Councillor Ivey, is there anything there that you wanted to add in as an amendment to the motion? Are there any parts there? You had a few points that you raised. I didn't know if you want to actually make any amendments to the motion to bring those in, or they were just more for comment.
No, Mr Mayor, I'm happy that with deletion of point C, with the recognition of point B, and just with my comments made to that motion, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Any other speakers? Any other comments? Councillor Black?
Mayor, just a question to start off with. In 1.D, it says about something along these lines that the Macquarie Conservatorium be responsible for all outgoings under the lease arrangements, including but not limited to utilities, fit-outs, repairs and maintenance. Can I just ask, I would think that the repairs and maintenance would have to be defined and agreed beforehand. Is that the idea there behind that? Because if the air conditioner blows up or something like that, would the con be up for $30,000 for a new one? Is that?
Happy to seek clarification there. To you, Ms CEO, I'm going to, rather than get clarification to you, Councillor Goff, I'll go to the staff because they obviously would be executing that lease agreement to understand what a normal R&M component would look like.
Yeah, I mean, to take the point of air conditioning, that there aren't many facilities in the building at the moment. It was more of a warehouse. So what the fit out delivered by the con would be the cons. And so that is an example potentially that will be more the responsibility of the con rather than council. So I think the amendment, you do have an email council, so Susan has passed that through so you can read it. It is utilities, fit out, repairs and maintenance on the agreed arrangement. So there is, what you've licensed me to do is what you're resolving potentially is for me to negotiate the terms, and that becomes part of the detail that we work towards by agreement. So largely beyond structural walls and what have you, so the actual facility that we're providing thus far, typically those other items will be the responsibility of the leasee.
Thank you, Mr. Does that satisfy that, Councillor Black?
Yeah, thank you. That's my question answered.
Yep. Yeah, comment, certainly.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, thanks for that answer. Yeah, like I said before, basically we're in this position because the state government, previous state government, has really let down the conservatorium in Dubbo. Now it's sort of falling to council to have to save the conservatorium. We have to save Regan Park. Now we've got to sort of save the conservatorium. So really, I do see this as a positive way forward for Dubbo. The con is building up their numbers again after being pretty much decimated, the student numbers, through a couple of years of COVID. So this will really help get that back on track. I'm very happy with the 5+5 year lease. The money in the bank that the conservatorium has got, when you look at the drill down into the figures, really there's less than $500,000 there that they've saved up over the last 20 years that'll be available for any fit out. So they'll have to source some other funds there. It's not like they're hugely financial, making a massive profit and putting that away all the time. So I think this will be a good arrangement. We see there in an email that we got the years between 2012 and 2019, the average surplus after all the costs was just $28,000. So, and in 3 of those years, they carried losses. So if the rent was even $20,000, they're sailing pretty fine to the wind. And also, they do need some cash reserves on hand, as every business does. So this will help the con. It will keep music alive in Dubbo and culture alive in Dubbo. And we also see that many other towns, including many of our competitors, for people to move to Dubbo, actively support their conservatoriums of music in their towns with peppercorn rent and reduced rent, and I think that it's a good thing that we can be doing that. As for the carpet court building, I'd be shocked if really that we, within 10 years, looking at how things move around town, I'd be shocked if that was going to be not still standing in 10 years, even if the con didn't go into it. Probably the same with the bowling club. Require an awful lot of money to rebuild something there, and I'm just not quite sure where that money might come from at this particular political cycle. But this does really create a catalyst, as Councillor Ivey said before, to really start putting the pressure on the state and federal governments to actively fund a new conservatorium in Dubbo, and that will require substantial funds, and they should be given by both state and federal governments, and we can chip in a little bit somewhere along the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Further comments? Councillor Mann.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question through yourself. Given some recent experiences, if council decides to go to one particular special interest group with a assistance such as this, is there a probity of some type of public exhibition or expression of interest, Mr. CEO, that we should have considered here?
I'll answer part of that first and then I'll hand over to the CEO, but that's obviously a decision for councillors to ultimately make. Councillor Mann, and you're probably referring to the Greens process that occurred with an expression of interest that was then potentially going out for less than market rent. Happy to throw to the CEO from that perspective.
To your point, Mr. Mayor, it is the councillor's choice, Councillor Mann. There's no obligation. The obligation you have is if you are providing a facility at less than market rental, that it has to be a decision by the elected body. It can't be decided by staff. So that is your requirement. Under Section 356 of the Act, it has to be a conscious decision to provide a financial assistance grant, which is what the resolution that Councillor Goff has read out has put forward does. So that's consistent with the legislation. So it's really a choice. There's no obligation to go out to an EOI. I would argue that this has been on the radar, colloquially speaking, for council because to facilitate a solution for a home for the conservatorium has been called out in the operational plan, and that operational plan was subject to public consultation. So I think it's a defendable position should you move straight to offering the lease, given it's been a focus of council formally in that sense. But it certainly is, as the Mayor says, it's up to councillors to decide the mechanism by which they award a building for less than market rental.
Thank you,
There's
CEO.
no obligation.
Councillor Mann, anything further?
No, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Mann. Anything further, councillors? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, obviously, it's a number of councillors got a lot of opinion on this particular item, and the conservatorium is obviously an important piece of infrastructure in the community. I understand there's around 600 students, of which 20% of them roughly are Indigenous students, and they not only come from Dubbo, but they do come from the region. So we do service some of those smaller centres around as well, who are educated through the con, which fills a gap that unfortunately isn't filled by the state government at the moment, which is services they provide. Irrespective of the decision that council makes here tonight, it's going to be contentious either way. We're either going to be funding a non-for-profit community organisation to the tune of an amount of money which they won't be paying in rent, or we won't be, and that may please other parts of the community. There's many not-for-profit organisations in Dubbo, and obviously there's many that are worthy of some receipt of some funds from council or from the state government. I'm just reading through the report tonight, CCL 23/102. Later on, we're going to talk about the draft budget and the fees and charges. And if you flick through that particular report, you'll see that many facets of council operate with only partial cost recovery, subsequently donating some of those facilities back to community, whether that be use of the pool, whether it be the family daycare facilities, the pipe hall, sporting field preparation fees, Barden Park. All of those particular facilities are funded, if you like, or partially funded to help varying community organisations to utilise those facilities. This is another facility that's owned by council, which this particular council is also looking to partially fund to assist a community organisation. So, look, I'm in support of a level of assistance for the Conservatorium of Music. I believe they do play an important part, but I guess I have a sense of frustration that, you know, we're 4 years down the track potentially since some original discussions were made, and now this council has a decision to make today, when maybe this decision could have been made a number of years ago, either by previous councils or previous governments. So I think what it does do for this council or future councils going forward is it does provide a point of time down the track that future councils need to aim towards, so that we can be talking various levels of government, so we can have a bank of money ourselves to be able to build what will be a fantastic cultural precinct in and around that cultural centre, and hopefully include something like the Conservatorium of Music when that does happen in 5 or 10 years' time, if that's the appetite of the council at the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Anything further, councillors? I certainly do struggle with this, and I can't support it personally. One of the issues that Councillor Black raised was something that I certainly feel as well, that this is an example of cost shifting from the state government to council, and unfortunately this happens in a whole range of areas, and we're left holding the can, not to devalue what the Conservatorium has done, and certainly all my 4 children went through the Conservatorium, but I don't believe it should be Dubbo ratepayers across the board that should be contributing funds. I think the state government should be contributing funds, and the students, as they have been doing. I do also struggle with the concept of giving a building that's a community-owned building to one organisation without an EOI process. We found even we went through an EOI process with the Greens, there was still some disappointment in the community in the way that process was handled. To not go out through an EOI process, I think, is inconsistent and lacks transparency. I also believe it's opening a Pandora's box, and the general manager the CEO only forwarded me an email recently that had another request from another organisation on the back of this request. So, and I'm meeting with someone tomorrow who's got another request from a community organisation. So I think it's opening up a Pandora's box that suddenly lots of organisations are going to see that the bank is now council rather than going through their normal funding processes. So I certainly can't support it. Obviously there's support around the table for it. I understand where the vote's probably going, but I suppose I would feel less comfortable if I hadn't actually put my views forward there. So no further comments. Councillor Goff, you have the right of reply to everything that's been talked about there in the discussion. Oh, yeah, thank you. So councillors, I put that, you've got Councillor Goff's motion before you as it was read out before with that one change that Councillor Goff made. I put that forward now. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried. Okay, thank you, councillors. The next item is CCC 23/19 that was pulled out of the committee meetings. Councillor Goff, do you wish to move that?
I'd like to move CCC 23/19, the Dubbo Aquatic Leisure Centre's request for proposal.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goff. Seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Goff, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Black.
Well, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd urge councillors to vote against this motion, and I'll now go into a little talk on why. Basically, the pool, to say that the pool runs at a loss, that's what it costs to provide a service. So I don't see it as running at a loss, I see it as a cost to provide a service. When we look through some budget forecasts of cost to provide services, we see that the pool's down there for about $1.9 million, the Dubbo, Wellington and Geary pools, but cemeteries cost next year $215,000. We're not going to contract that out. Showgrounds, $950,000 to provide that service. Library services, $2.6 million. We're not rushing to contract that out. Wellington Caves, $480,000 loss or a cost there. Street lighting, $800,000 cost. Stormwater, $1 million. The road network, $19 million. We're not rushing to get rid of these off the council books and contract them out in the hope that they may cost less. We don't actually even really know what this will cost, but it seems like an ideological or philosophical position that, it should be run better by a private contractor rather than by council staff. Now, basically, no, it'd be interesting to see any public pool that breaks even or runs at a profit. If we didn't have the pools, then there'd be an awful lot of trouble come summertime. A lot of people would who can't afford their own pools. As I said 2 weeks ago, the only real saving, going through the reports, the June 2022 report, the only real saving that's going to be made is on the cost of labour, which is 65 to 70% of the cost of providing the service of running the pools. All the other utilities, chemicals, maintenance, cleaning, they're all fixed costs. There's nothing to be saved there at all. So really what we're talking about doing is putting the wages down of employees of council, which is what will happen. People will be employed if it goes out to contract. They'll be out of the local government award, which pays a fair wage, and under a federal award where the wages and conditions are much, much, much less than what they're currently on under the New South Wales Local Government Award. That's basically what this gets down to. Also, I'll reiterate the points I made a fortnight ago, that the June 2022 report basically says that in-house management stacks up. We looked at, the advice from staff was that it's better on the maintenance of the pumps and filters and other equipment if it's managed in-house rather than contracted out, which is a saving in the longer term. The cost to administer the contract, we were told, would be $50,000 if all goes well, but if we've got 2 or 3 different contractors and it goes bad, well, that will just exponentially go up. So there wouldn't be any saving at all really there. This rush to potentially go out to tender hasn't been through the Aquatics Working Party. So I know that the committees, community committees don't make decisions, but it sort of begs the question, why bother having them if they're not going to be consulted on something as big as this? Also noting, I was looking back through the reports and the costs. The net cost to council for all the facilities, Dubbo, Wellington and Geary, came in at about $900,000, whereas this year we're looking at year-to-date actuals, nearly $1.6 million, forecast $2 million. We should be asking, instead of rushing out to tender on this, we should be asking some serious questions about what happened. How can something change that rapidly? What caused the cost blowouts? What can we, as a council, do rather than just contract out people's jobs and have them employed back on less money? What can be done to, or effectively maybe, increase the revenue and reduce the costs through management? So looking also through the report, price is only 25% of the criteria for awarding a contract. When I look at the other things there, it's like, so we really need to factor in everything. It's not just about the actual cost here. So that only makes up a quarter of the actual criteria. Now, it does seem that we're rushing out. There had been an agreement that would run the pools in-house this season just finished and next season as well. But due to a couple of managers leaving, the pool managers, suddenly we're rushing out to a quick tender. If, let's say, a manager leaves the Wellington Caves, we don't just suddenly say, oh, let's contract out Wellington Caves, or Recreation and Sporting or the Library Services manager leaves. It's not like, oh, we're going to contract out the management there and see if we can save some money, which we may or may not, and may or may not provide a better service. So it does seem like a bit of an ideological and philosophical decision that contract management should be better rather than in-house. And I'll just make the point again that really what we're going to see is the people who were working at the pool possibly getting their jobs back, but for less money, doing the same job, but being paid less. And I don't know that that's a great place for council to be in, that we're employing local people for less money. So I'd urge councillors to vote against the motion and then to work with management to seek maybe ways to increase revenue and management decisions that can make savings and get the budget back on track. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Any further discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would speak in favour of the motion, and perhaps in doing that, could I just pick up on a couple of the points that Councillor Black made opposing the motion. He seemed to concentrate very much on the opportunity of saving costs and labour in particular, but I would say that really one of the fundamental things that seems to have gone wrong under the council stewardship of the pool is the falling revenue. I think if we could increase the revenue by 10 or 15 or 20%, then the bottom line goes up by a much, much greater amount, because any revenue virtually goes straight to the bottom line. Increase in revenue goes virtually straight to the bottom line. And just looking at the Wellington pool, which I've got more experience with than the Dubbo Centre, Gee, there are things there that I think could be done a whole lot better. I mean, when I first came to Wellington many, many years ago, there was a very strong water polo competition. Now, why isn't there a water polo competition being pushed and got going in Wellington that would bring a number of people to the pool? We've got a touch football competition there that started 3 or 4 years ago that now has hundreds of people competing. You know, that's the sort of thing which could be put at the pool. There just doesn't seem to be the incentive there to look at what we can do and how we can do it a bit, or what we can do better. What's not done as well as it could be and how it could be done better. As far as I hear his comments about the wages, yes, that's right. They probably will be employed for less, but I would argue that's because the current wage cost is too high. I mean, you've got people there who are being paid very good wages as lifesavers, but yet we've had to cancel and turn kids away from a Learn to Swim campaign because those people don't have a Learn to Swim ticket. Now, surely anyone that we employ in that pool should have a Learn to Swim accreditation so that they can actually teach kids and we don't have to turn them away. So I think that, again, the opportunity of putting it out there to tender, to see who might be interested in it and what expertise they've got and what they can bring to the table to try to increase the revenue and to do that more efficiently can only be a good thing. If we don't get any good tenders, we don't get suitable people, then okay, we don't have to accept them. We can stay in-house. But I think going out there and testing the market is a very good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. I've then got Councillor Mann.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just, I'm probably coming from a commercial angle more than anything. This is new territory for us. We previously, when we had outsourced management, it was the one pool. We now, because we've inherited 2 more, and given the relatively small size they're not all the same size as the main pool in Dubbo. What's our stop-go timing on this if we go to tender and we may get a lineup of people that maybe want one of the pools or possibly 2 but not the other, etc. If we ended up getting stuck with a pool that had no candidates, Mr. CEO, what would be the timing on when we can decide which way we're going to go with this? Because then we always then would have to go and reinstate our management team if it wasn't a go-ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. I'll go through to the CEO.
Very quickly with the answer, Councillor Mann. So what we have out at the market, what we're having in the market is a request for proposal. So it's a little bit different to a tender. So we are testing the market in that sense. And there's no guarantee that the market comes back, even if for the major pool, that it would stack up compared to staff. So we are open-minded about what that market testing looks like. We would bring a decision to, we would bring a report to council for a decision that would address those issues that you're defining really, which is, do we subsidise the loss-making pools and keep them in-house and outsource the one that makes a bigger return? So, for example, the Dubbo pool increased its income in this last season compared to the last. Wellington had a poor season in terms of income. So that would what we would have to consider, I think, is the whole service. To Councillor Black's point, it's a service, public pools. You rarely have I seen them in a council setting make money per se. So it's how much the subsidy we're providing. So that'd be the overall consideration we bring back, and we would be fairly quick in bringing that back, because if we do have to resource running them in-house, we would have to recruit a manager to, again, connect with what Councillor Black said. We do have some vacancies. That's the right time to review, and we do that across the board, how we're providing a service, because you don't have people that are affected in roles. So can't give you the exact month, Councillor Mann, but it is very quick because we would need to gear up. Even a contractor would need to gear up ready for the season to open up in Dubbo, for example, in I think mid-September. So this is not accelerated process, but we have to act very promptly.
Thank you.
So my point is, I guess, sorry.
Councillor Mann.
Am I right to go? Yeah, I guess my point is on this particular motion, it is only request for proposal. There's no binding decisions being made. So I think it would be almost erroneous of us not to go out and have a look what's out there. And that will then inform our position at the next decision-making point.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Any further discussions, councillors? Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a question, which you may not be able to answer, but through you, Mr. Mayor. Can you give some examples of a number of other council-owned pool facilities, maybe around the East Coast, New South Wales, Victoria, that are managed by a number of external providers? Do you have any examples of that, or numbers, maybe?
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I see what the CEO's got off the top of his head.
Notice.
That's another examples.
You lost me at numbers, but I can give you a few pools. From what I understand, and I can get this information more accurately to councillors via an email from staff. So Park Shire Council, for example, goes out. I'm very confident that Narromine Shire is contract managed. In the Central West, Orange is all staff in-house, whereas Bathurst has been contract for some time as well. So there are some major players who contract out pools, and whereas I think in a smaller community like at Narromine, it's a single operator, not one of the big players like the YMCA or a couple of other big private mobs. So it's a common practice and to council staff to run them or to have them outsourced. So it's quite a mix across the sector.
Thank you, CEO. Further, Councillor Wright?
Thank you.
Any further discussion or debate, councillors? No. Councillor Goff, you do have a right of reply if you wish to exercise that.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So the recommendation as brought forward by the committee meeting is what we're voting on at the moment. So as it's written at the moment in the papers from the committee meeting, all those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item, CCL 23/99, report of the Corporate Services Committee. So moved by Councillor Mann, seconded by Councillor Black. Thank you, Councillor Black. Any exceptions, any save and accepts from that, councillors? No, there being none, I put that, or any discussion or debate on the business paper in general. Put that, all those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 23/100, repatriation of axe grinding groove rock from Wiradjuri Park to Terramunga Mine Reserve. Councillor Lewis, Councillor Burns, so moved, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Burns, you wish to speak to your motion.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, grinding grooves that at Wiradjuri Park were moved there in the 90s. I think it was by local land services at the time. And it was a bit of an issue with traditional owners at the time because there wasn't enough consultation. And the rock was moved anyway against the wishes of a lot of the traditional owners. So with the Transport for New South Wales putting the road through and the bridge through, I thought it was an opportunity to have that rock repatriated, sent back to where it come from. And I did an online poll just to get the feeling for the traditional owners, and 75% of the poll said return the rock back to where it come from at Terramunga Mine, so that's the direction we're taking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Other speakers on this item? Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak in support of this motion and in reference to repatriating this item to where it originally came from. We do that with many other items, and the fact that New South Wales Transport will be bulldozing through that area and potentially destroying that rock or the grinding grooves, well, to me, it makes really good cultural sense that we repatriate it to where it belongs. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Other speakers? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is a good motion which hopefully will result in a very good outcome for the traditional owners of Dubbo. But it also does highlight the fact that Transport for New South Wales is jamming a bridge straight through Wiradjuri Park, which is in a great spot right on the river. And what a shame that is to be building this River Street Bridge, which most of the town really deep down know is a white elephant, when we should have been getting something so much better. But hopefully grinding stones will get repatriated, and that'll probably be the best thing to come out of this new bridge, River Street Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. I've got a question, and I'm happy if either Councillor Burns wants to answer it if you know the answer, or through our staff. Obviously, it can't stay where it is now. The bridge is going to be there. Do we know if there's been any discussion by Transport for New South Wales about their intentions with this already? And Councillor Burns, I'll go to you first. If you know about any plans they have?
No, there's nothing that I know of. That it was just something I brought up in a meeting that I had with Transport for New South Wales in regard to burning off along the highway.
Right. And thank you, Councillor Burns, and to our staff. Have we heard anything from them about what their intention might be?
Less specific than to do with the rock with the axe grinder grooves, but more about they do have a plan in the overall budget for the bridge and the approach roads to renew the landscaping in that park. So there would be a solution. So I think the power of this notice of motion from Councillor Burns is the timing is right to actually introduce this conversation with Transport for New South Wales before they start designing around it, planning to move it within the remnant of open space.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussions or debate, councillors? No, Councillor Burns, you do have a right of reply if you wish to exercise that.
I just wanted to say I agree with CEO there with what he said in regard to they're going to go through there anyway, and they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do with it, and we want them to figure out in the right direction instead of thinking in the wrong direction again. Two wrongs don't make a right, so we can correct this one, even though the bridge is still going in. That's my opinion. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I have the motion before us. All those in favour? Against? Okay, that carried. Next item is CCL 23/101, review of rate structure for 23-24. Can I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Wright. And I will clarify something, get a point of clarification from the CEO in a moment, but Councillor Wells, do you wish to speak to that first?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Now, I just want to ask, before we continue the debate, just want to ask the CEO in relation to that, is there any additional wording we might need because of the complexity of this being partly a decision of council and partly being part of another part of council that will go on public display?
Sure. The recommendations as part of this paper and now moved calls out the rate structure. So we do need to determine a rate structure. But then in item 2, it says the rate structure is to be included in the revenue policy. So the revenue policy is then part of our organisational documentation, the draft budget and so on, that goes out on public exhibition to seek public comment. So and I think we've heard from councillors that it's somewhat unclear. I guess it makes sense to us in terms of rating. It's a very complex area. So if you wanted to make that clear, you could add a further recommendation that said that it be noted that the revenue policy containing the rating proposal will be on public exhibition seeking public comment. And then it refers to the other documentations as they go out. So if you wanted to call that out more clearly.
So the 0.5, for example?
That's what I'm suggesting to address some of the council's concerns about the opaqueness of the recommendation, noting that we've done this similarly every year.
So rather than having an amendment, Councillor Wells, if you were happy with that to be modified for the motion that you moved, so which was 0.5, the CEO just read out, then you want to read it again, do you?
Sure.
Okay.
That it be noted that the revenue policy containing the outcome of the rating structure will be placed on public exhibition seeking public comment.
If you're happy with that, Councillor Wells, as being part of the
Happy with
the
that,
motion
thank you,
you
Mr
moved.
Mayor. Happy with that.
And the seconder, who was seconded that one? Councillor Black was, I think. No, Councillor Wright, sorry. So if you're happy with that as well, Councillor Wright, then that's now the motion. So as printed in our papers with 0.5 on there. Okay, so Councillor Wells, now with that new motion, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, so Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just through you, item 4 in that particular motion just talks about residential village and residential Geary. Just talks about setting a minimum rate applicable to less than 50% of properties. Seems like a rather precise number. Just wondering if we might be able to get just a little bit of clarity as to why that's an important requirement.
Certainly a good question, Councillor Wright. Through CEO to Ms Bathingwaite.
Thank you. Yes, it's important so that I guess it's the ability to pay in rating classifications that everyone pays their part. So setting, we can't set a minimum that over 50% have to pay. So we have to increase the minimum so we get below that 50%. So it's just that ability to spread the load or the burden and what services we provide to each community, that it's fair and equal.
And if I could add, Mr Mayor, it is very regulated in that particular clause. So Office of Local Government as regulator provides practice notes on how we should structure rates. So that is consistent with the regulations we have to apply.
I suppose before Geary residents think that we're picking on them in some way, shape or form, part of this has been driven by the Valuer General revaluing properties across the LGA, but Geary seemed to have a much larger revaluation than across the rest of the LGA. So that then meant that our normal rating structure created somewhat of an issue, hence the point there, 0.4, if that makes sense. Yeah. Anyway, Councillor Wright.
Just a further question of clarity as well. Many people would have received their notices from the Valuer General's office back earlier in the year, which would have showed that their properties would have increased quite significantly since their previous one a number of years ago. I think there's an automatic assumption that if their property's gone up in value, their rates are also going to go up. Can you confirm that that is or isn't the case as well?
It may be the case, and this is the very confusing part for the community to understand. The total rating pool goes up by 3.7% is the amount in that recommendation if the councillors approve that recommendation. But that doesn't mean individual rates go up by 3.7%. And a Valuer General may put rates up may put a value up much higher or much lower than the rest of Dubbo. And there's a combination of the Valuer General and the 3.7% to decide what your rating might be. So your rates may go up by more than 3.7% or less than 3.7%. And just seeing the additional value in your unimproved land value doesn't mean your rates will go up by that amount. So it is very confusing for individuals receiving that VG notice. Anything that I missed there, Ms. CEO?
So the added complexity is in the subcategories of rating. It is relative to your values versus others in your rating subcategory values as well. So some values may go up, but your people, how complex it is, some people will end up paying less rates under this structure as well because it is comparative within a subcategory. So it's like the cake. You've got your cake mix, you've got a slice. It's the mix inside the slice of the cake, if I can use a crude metaphor.
And there are 15 different rating categories across the LGA. And if people are concerned about or confused, in our business papers, we've actually got some examples there about some individual locations in terms of how the rates might change. And people will notice in there that sometimes rates will go down, sometimes rates will go up. Overall, council, if we approve this motion and that goes forward as part of our draft budget, then overall our pool will increase by 3.7%, but individual circumstances may be different to that. So it does get confusing. Councillor Wright.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's right. Okay. Other questions or debate, councillors? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's really through gritted teeth that I'll support this motion because the 3.7%, I know it's half of inflation. Inflation 7.8 down to 7 or whatever they reckon it is. The real inflation is probably off the scale. But rates are getting very dear within Dubbo. I've noticed that. People comment that to me all the time. So I think that I'll have to support it because our costs are going up. But I'm not happy about it. And we really do need to make sure we're delivering. Part of our job as council is to really deliver value for money so that people feel not they're getting value for money, but that they feel that they're getting value for money. That's one of the things that we really need to make sure that we're doing over this next 12 months. So I will support this. I don't like rate increases. I don't particularly like paying rates, but they are necessary if we want some services around our towns and villages. Thank you.
And just to further clarify something there, Councillor Black, I was actually asked on radio just recently about rates and changes in rates, and I did actually say on radio that we are not going out for a special rate variation. We will probably go forward with a IPART approved variation, which is a 3.7%, but there are some councils across the state that are going up as high as an 80%, 50%, a number around 20, 30%, sometimes over 1 year or 2 years. So there are some other councils across the state that are making significant increases in rates because of those costs that you mentioned, Councillor Black, in terms of inflation going up at such high rates. So this council is committed to saying we're not going to go and ask for a special rate variation. We're going to try and keep it within the 3.7% IPART amount. So I take your point that it is getting tough for people to pay rates, but with inflation that high, it's tougher for us to keep running the business. Other comments or questions, councillors? Councillor Wells, you do have a right of reply if you wish to exercise that.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We have the recommendation, including point 5, before us at the moment, councillors. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Okay, the next item is CCL 23/102, the draft 23-24 budget and fees. Councillor, move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Wright, you wish to speak to that?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I encourage the community to have a look at that document. It's obviously quite a sizable one, but certainly explains quite lengthy detail as to where council does allocate a lot of their money. One particular item I do want to call out, and I know myself and a couple of other councillors have had some feedback with respect to this. I think it's on about page 98 of that report. Talks about urban entrances. There's an additional $370,000 per annum allocated to the main entrances in Dubbo and Wellington for roadside maintenance, and that'll improve the overall look and presentation of those particular entrances. So for those people who have reached out to councillors, I know things take a little while to filter through. Hopefully we'll see this one filter through in the 23-24 budget, and we'll see some improvements to those entrances. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? And just confirming that we have now confirmed the Parkinson's law of triviality. The amount of discussion on any topic is inversely proportional to the amount of money being spent. So we're approving a budget with a few dollars in it and minimal discussion. So have that before us, councillors. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. The next item, CCL 23/103, the draft 23-24 delivery program and operational plan. Have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Burns, and seconded by Councillor Wells. Councillor Burns, you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr.
Any discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just another one of those rather lengthy documents that, again, I'd really encourage the community to grab a cup of tea and sit down and have a read of it. There's a lot in there, and the feedback that the community provides to council helps us shape that document and how the council looks when as we go forward. So, again, just one of those really important ones that we encourage as much community feedback and consultation as possible. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Burns, you have a right of reply to what Councillor Wright said, if you wish.
No, I'm all right, thank you.
Thank you. So, councillor, we have that before us. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is CCL 23/104, results of public exhibition to the DCP for Wellington and Dubbo for attached developments. So, sorry, have I missed one, councillor?
Is it 104, 103?
103, sorry, my apologies. CCL, thank you. CCL 23/104, results of public exhibition to the DCP 2013 for Wellington and Dubbo for detached developments. Councillors, have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Goff, seconded by Councillor Wright. Councillor Goff, do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. And another one, CCL 23/105, results of public exhibition for planning proposal for Cavell Drive. Have someone move that, please. Thank you, Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Black. And Councillor Wright, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Any discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 23/106, council-related development application, conflict of interest policy. Can I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Chowdhury. Councillor Wright, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you again.
Any discussion or debate, councillors? None, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Now, next item is CCL 23/107, draft planning agreement. And we've got one printed in our business papers, but I believe, Councillor Black, you've got an alternative motion you're going to read there. And I do apologise, it's a bit long, but you'll have to read the whole thing because there is one significant change in there. Thank you, Councillor Black.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. Wade. So the alternative motion is basically the same as what is in the papers, except for point 3, but I'll read out the whole lot. The alternative motion. 1, that council negotiate a draft planning agreement with Squadron Energy Proprietary Limited in respect to the Spices Creek Wind Farm project. 2, that a draft planning agreement be for 1.5% of the capital investment value of the project. 3, this is where the change is, that any draft planning agreement be aligned with the offer letter provided by Squadron Energy Proprietary Limited dated 26 April 2023. 4, that in respect of the 107 proposed wind turbines in the Dubbo Regional Local Government Area and the 10 wind turbines proposed in the Warrumbungle Local Government Area, that planning agreement funding be considered on a pro rata basis per turbine. 5, that a draft planning agreement be prepared in accordance with the requirements of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979 and the Environmental Planning and Assessment Regulation 2021. 6, that a draft planning agreement prepared in accordance with recommendations 1 to 4 be publicly exhibited in accordance with the provisions of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. And finally, 7, that following the conclusion of the public exhibition period, a further report be presented to Council for consideration, including any submissions received. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Councillor Black, do you wish to speak to that motion?
No, thank you.
Any further discussion or debate? Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'll speak in favour of the motion, bearing in mind that it indeed is a motion to put the proposed agreement on public exhibition and call for some comments from the public in respect of that submission. I haven't been able to sort of study the proposal in as much detail as I would like, but nonetheless, I'm still happy to propose to second the motion and support it that this council pass it. Just foreshadow some of the things which I think the public and should look at and maybe make a submission in relation to it is I noticed that, for instance, in talking about the allocation of funds in years 6 to 30, that the strategic projects that funds be used within the, and it says the Dubbo LGA, but it should say the Dubbo Regional LGA, that with an emphasis on large-scale infrastructure, including road infrastructure provision and maintenance. Now, I think this community really wants to be aware of, and I'm sure it will make its voice heard. We don't want this community fund or the amount of money coming through under the voluntary planning agreement to be just used for maintenance. This funding, the whole point of the funding from renewables is to improve the lot of the area in which it's being built and which is being affected by it. And I think that is very important that we do realise that it is for improvement, not for maintenance. And it shouldn't be, this funding must not be used as a substitute for the funding which state government or federal government or the local government would normally have done if it weren't for this particular development. It's got to be funding that is in addition to what would have been carried out otherwise. And I just think that the agreement, the draft agreement as there, doesn't spell that out sufficiently. But as I say, I'm happy that once it goes on public exhibition, that those sorts of submissions can be made and hopefully incorporated in the final document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Have any other discussion or debate, councillors? Councillor Ivey, you can't say more in debate, but you can ask a question if you want, or seek clarification. You just can't. You've had your one chance at debate. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Ivey. Anything further? No. Councillor Black, you have a right of reply to anything that was said there by Councillor Ivey.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favour, councillors? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 23/108, secondary dwelling at lot 461 Caves Road, Apsley. And again, we've got an alternative motion rather than the one printed in the business papers there. Councillor Wright, if you'd like to read out that alternative motion.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Due to a bit of additional information coming to light over the last couple of days, I do have an alternate motion here. Item 1, that Council defer this item for consideration at a future meeting of Council if the recently submitted additional information, once assessed, is deemed to be inadequate. And 2, that should the recently submitted additional information be deemed to be sufficient once assessed, that the application be determined under delegated authority. And 3, that the applicant and those people making submissions be advised on Council's decision in this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Can someone second that, please? Thank you, Councillor Black. And Councillor Wright, do you wish to speak to that?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Only to note that this particular motion just does provide an element of time frame for the Planning Department of Council to consider the additional information that's come to light in the last couple of days, or come to hand in the last couple of days. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wright. Discussion, Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, look, I'll support the motion, but in supporting it, I'd also like to make some comments about the whole this whole issue, how it came to this. It seems that, to be quite honest, from my perhaps uninformed opinion initially when I wasn't on council and then subsequently being on council, it probably could have been handled a bit better. I think council could have handled it a bit better. We heard a bit of an emotional speech from Mr. Bryant where he basically said, look, I accept what's happened, I accept that where we're up to, and I accept that probably this DA will be approved. But what I want council to hear is how dissatisfied I was in how the whole process was handled. And I've got some sympathy with him. I think, look, he does become emotional. He's probably gone off at a bit of a tangent at times and done things that weren't really necessary or even in his best interests. But I do appreciate and sympathise with him that the way that council handled it, I think, to be quite honest, it could have been done better. But having said that, as I say, I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Further discussion or debate? Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure whether I'll actually support the motion. However, I suppose what I wanted to point out is that any citizen seeking a DA has to go through the standard process. We're all bound by that, as should this person be as well. I too sympathise with the gentleman's presentation here tonight and the amount of evidence, I should say, that was proposed over a long term that it came to this. So I just wanted to say that we're all bound by compliance and governance and should comply.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Further discussion or debate, councillors? There being none, Councillor Wright, do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Have the motion before us. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 23/109, Memorial Parks and Donation of Park Furniture and Trees. Wish to move that, Councillor Goff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that.
Moved by Councillor Goff, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Goff, do you wish to speak to that?
Yes, thank you. Great report. It's comprehensive application. Just the point Mr. Mayor made in the briefing that it didn't specify groups that could be mentioned, so it's just individual. So, but yeah, we're out. But thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goff. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item, CCL 23/110, Financial Assistance Program 22-23 Round 2. Have someone move that, please. Councillor Chowdhury, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Chowdhury, do you wish to speak to that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just make a comment that this is a great way to assist local non-profit organization to help within our community. But it's in the page 585 is showing like a Double River Care Group being unsuccessful only for they haven't done the last year equitable. So I will encourage the community groups to make sure they're compliant and they do their paperwork before they submit, so they're not gonna miss out this sort of like a financial benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chowdhury. Good advice. Any other comment or debate, councillors? Councillor Wright.
Just a question, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I note that point 3 in that motion just refers to surplus funds rolling over into 23-24 round 1. Just getting a bit of an idea where there's some funds left over from round 1 of 22-23 rolling into 2, then rolling into next year. Do we continue to carry that over? Is there a balance that we might encourage community to have a look at and take advantage of?
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Throw that through to Ms. Bassingway, to MCO.
I'll just add quickly that I know councillors have asked us to review our community assistance program, so I guess it will be caught up there, but the overall pool would be available for a rebooted program. But Ms. Bassingway?
I'd have to take on notice for the actual amount. Can't look it up that quickly.
That's fair. I thank you, Councillor Wright. Any further, Councillor Wright there?
No, thank you.
Any other questions or debate, councillors? None. I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Next item is the Community Services Fund 22-23 round 2. Can I have someone move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Wright. And seconded by Councillor Showery. Councillor Wright, you wish to speak to that?
Only just to comment that I think there's possibly some elements of confusion with respect to some of these particular grant subsidies that are available. So, as alluded to by the CEO a few moments ago, to see a little bit of simplification across a number of these particular community service funds or community service programs, would be welcomed by me and probably welcomed by community, so they can get their head around a little bit clearer as to what's available and when it's available and how they can avail of it.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Any other discussion or debate, councillors? Being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Comments and matters of urgency. So I'll start from the right. I'll go around Councillor Showery, and I won't forget you, Councillor Marr, and I'll come to you at the end. So I'll start with Councillor Showery first. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I went to this week attend double Anzac Day, and I really appreciate the council staff and the RSL club. They've done a fantastic job, and there's a big crowd. I think you have mentioned around 3,000 people turn up morning service. I really appreciate community to come in. And I also highlighted one of the event is upcoming, that Michael Egan Book Fair. It will be held on 29th of April to 30th April at Double Showground. Fantastic book fair, lot of 1,000 book on that show. I will encourage the community to come and participate that show. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Showery. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too wanted to make mention of the Anzac Day events across the area. I was fortunate to be able to attend the Yurrumurrungy Anzac Day celebration and deliver the Dubbo Council speech, which I felt very honoured. Actually felt really honoured about being out there because that small community rallied together and they have a lot of participation. The dignitaries that came along spoke beautifully, and I got to talk with them afterwards. It's a really, I think, profound event that just keeps reminding us, and there's still young people that keep coming through, and I hope that it continues to get the attention going forward. At that Anzac Day event, I did speak with one of the attendees after the formalities, and like I made mention earlier, this lady was 77, and she was talking to me about learning a new musical instrument, and joined when she was just over 70. And I thought that was amazing that a person could join the con at over 70 to learn a musical instrument. And she's having the time of her life doing that. So I just think that was really good information and research for me as well. The other thing I wanted to make mention is that over the last couple of weeks, or probably a bit longer, Council took us on a couple of really interesting tours. One that I probably would not normally go on, and one was to the Dubbo Regional Livestock Markets, which was, you can imagine, a lovely odour for us all to enjoy while we were walking through, and something that I wouldn't normally do. But then we also got to go to the sewage treatment works, which they were both really interesting tours and really interesting. Hearing from the people that run those facilities and hearing the detail that goes into it and the passion that the people have, the council staff have in what they do and what they deliver. So I just wanted to sort of thank the staff for what they do. And I know it was an early morning start for us to go out there, but it was really interesting, and hats off to those guys running those facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Councillor Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd just reiterate Councillor Wells' comments about that, the tour of the sale yards and the sewerage work, in particular, the comments about the enthusiasm of the staff. Well, that's terrific. I mean, it's a great facility and know a little bit about it, but just to see the passion of staff, that was terrific. I'd just like to quickly talk about the theme of Anzac Day. I actually had the pleasure. I went to the dawn service at Wellington, which I always do, and I was the council representative at Mumble and also at Stewarttown. Now, at Mumble, I must admit, perhaps I didn't collect my thoughts properly, but I arrived there with the council wreath, and the little group of the community was there, and I looked at the program, and it says the address to be given by Councillor Richard Ivey. And I thought, oh, shivers. Right, okay. Anyway, so I stood up, and could I just quickly repeat, well, not repeat, but paraphrase what I did. I said, look, I'm here to sort of talk about Anzac Day, but I don't want to talk about Anzac Day. I want to talk about Mumble and small communities. I really think, as maybe councillors do realise, I have a bit of a passion for small communities. I think they're very important. And so I said, look, I'd just like to talk about Mumble and small communities. Look, what's good about Mumble? Look, you know, you've got friendship, you've got camaraderie, you've got support amongst the community, you've got recognition of history and where you've come from and what you're on about. You've got a sense of purpose. You've got a sense of pride and appreciation of what we've got in Australia. And then I said, hang on, am I talking about Mumble or Anzac Day? Because most of those things actually apply to Anzac Day. And I think that's very important that people recognise the importance of small communities, particularly for Anzac Day. And it's I don't think it's any coincidence that so many of the soldiers who fought in the First World War came from small communities. We had the Kiwi March that went through where we were standing, actually, at the service, and it just brings home again the importance of what small communities do and contribute, and for the residents that belong there. And I think so it was quite a humbling experience to see. I can tell you at Mumble there were perhaps, I didn't count them, but there were less than 50 people, but it was just fantastic. It was really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ivey. Councillor Goff.
Yeah, going on from Anzac Day, I attended Dubbo purely because my daughter was marching for the first time. She's in kindergarten at Wongarbin. Gee, I was impressed with all the students. That is a long walk on a hot day. And then they sat up all around the cenotaph very quietly. Congratulations to all the students and all the teachers that participated. And then the rest of the day I took a drive out to Budangra at their memorial cenotaph out there and to go visit some ancestors. And just thinking about the small communities that contributed and sent soldiers over, yeah, it just hits home. And going from the commander that came and spoke on Anzac Day in Dubbo, it was really touching how she got emotional during her speech, and to just also let it out to everyone that being emotional and wearing your heart on your sleeve is okay. So, and congratulations to the staff for organising Anzac Day. Throughout the last month, I attended Youth Week activities. Another great service. We got all the service providers for youth around Dubbo to attend Youth Week. They had beautiful weather. So well done to our youth officer, and also, once again, encouraging more youth to come to our youth council meetings. I also attended the Wellington Museum opening at their new location at the old police station at Wellington. About 60 people. Food went really quickly anyway. And it was really great to see a new committee which is energised to get things going, and they've got a roster. So I'm sure they've got spaces on their roster if anyone wants to volunteer to stand at the museum. But I encourage everyone to go have a look and support their new location. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goff. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anzac Day, I had the great honour of representing council at the Wellington ceremony, standing in for Councillor Ivey, who did Stewarttown. At the same time, they were on. Can't be in two places at once. He's very good, but even he has to draw the line somewhere. It was a very special. Everyone says, oh, our Anzac Day event was so special, but they actually are. All across the country, in towns and villages, and overseas in theatres of war and at cenotaphs where Australians have fought and died and been buried. They are very special, and that's something we all need to keep in mind. And it's a real credit to the nation as a whole and the community and the Returned Servicemen's League and Women's League that put these events on, the sub-branches. Also, Indian miner and starling trapping. I had the Dubbo Environment Group, Mark Stacey, Damien Salustio. Mark Stacey, he does a great job volunteering his time to trap Indian miners and starlings all around the town, and we only got about 10 Indian miners and 10 starlings. I was hoping for thousands of starlings because they get along the power lines there of an afternoon on Sheraton Road near to schools, and real health hazard before going and roosting in a nearby car park. But I'd like to thank Mark for his efforts and keep up the good work, and he's doing a great job trapping Indian miners and starlings everywhere. And Councillor Ivey, I know, has taken some traps down to Wellington for people to use, but it's a great community effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Wright.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Following on that Anzac theme, which seems to have resonated amongst the group, I accompanied Councillor Wells out to Yamundry as well, and actually I must say that there's 10 councillors, and I know we all have our personal lives as well as council lives, but my understanding is that we were spread around the LGA quite generously over that the Anzac Day. Being represented in Dubbo, Wellington, Stewart Town, Yamundry, Geary and Mumble. I know there's probably a couple of small communities there that may have missed out on some council presence, but certainly hope we can get to that next year. So well done to all the councils for getting around to the LGA. Just a note of thanks passed on from one of the residents of Yamundry, who certainly wanted to bring that on to Parks and Land Care guys. The presentation of the memorial itself around Anzac Day and even around Remembrance Day, always very good, and certainly looking around the LGA, I think that can be said for all of those particular monuments in the lead up to those important ceremonies. So a note of thanks and well done to the staff on that.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Burns.
Nothing to say, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I'd like to carry on with the Anzac Day theme. And small communities, don't they do it well? They just do it so well, and it's so meaningful. I had the pleasure of being out there at Geary, and they include the whole community, the kids in the schools, the local pony club. Everyone's involved, and it was just amazing and very moving. And I'm looking forward to going back there again next year. But the small communities, they really lay it on, don't they? They really do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Mann.
It would be remiss of me not to mention my Anzac Day experience. Congratulations to our councillors, by the way. A great job. Unfortunately, I was out of the state, so I couldn't take one of those jobs on, but I represented ourselves in the hinterland of the Yarra Valley Ranges. Got up and had a dawn service and actually tuned into the Canberra War Memorial service, which was quite touching. And our Prime Minister, Albo, I thought he was a wonderful speech. And if anyone didn't hear it, it's probably worth having a listen to. So, that was my Anzac Day experience.
Anything else, Councillor Mann? Nothing else, Councillor Mann?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a few quick items. It was another citizenship ceremony we had this last month since the last council meeting. So that was another 33 new citizens we welcomed to Dubbo. And thank you, Councillor Ivey, for coming along to that. And councillors are welcome to come to all of them. I know most councillors have been to some, but it is pretty exciting just seeing how many people come to those citizenship ceremonies. And we're looking to have them on a more regular basis because we argue the numbers building up so much. So it's always very exciting. A new government in place. So we've already had 2 meetings, the Minister for Local Government and the Minister for Regional Roads. We've had meetings with those 2 so far, and then looking to line up some other meetings. In fact, the Minister for Regional Roads was very excited when she met with us because she said that's the very first meeting she's had as a minister with any external stakeholder. So it's very privileged to get in there so early, but we'll keep working on all those various ministers to see what we can do and make sure we get in the door with those various ministers. I agree with Councillor Goff, the museum opening. Councillor Ivey and Councillor Goff were down there as well as the CEO. Very exciting for the museum because that's been a long time coming to get to that location. Now they've just got a lot of work to do in continuing to move over all their various artefacts and items they've got there across to the museum. So a big job in front of them, but good to see that first step having taken. And Councillor Ivey and I went across to Yeovil for the Progress Association meeting, given the fact that North Yeovil is in Dubbo Regional Council LGA. So that was a very interesting meeting, and I thank the Yeovil residents for coming along. And of course, the Golf Day, Councillor Mann, Councillor Chowdhury and myself represented Dubbo Regional Council. I'm not sure that we covered ourselves in glory on that particular day. Councillor Wright was in another team, but Ms. Coomer believed that she did cover herself in glory as part of the council staff team, which outshone the council law team on that particular day. I'm surprised you haven't got the trophy there. It's not under the table there, Ms. Coomer. So well done to the Dubbo Chamber of Commerce for organising another good Dubbo Chamber of Commerce Golf Day. And the last one, everyone else has mentioned already, but I do want to thank all the councillors for their efforts on Anzac Day to have 6 different ceremonies on the day at various locations, villages and towns and city across the Dubbo Regional Council, LGA, and with only 10 councillors spread across 6 of those, and in some areas multiple councillors there. It was a great representation from this council at all of those particular areas, those Anzac Day ceremonies, and it was appreciated, and I've already received some emails from people thanking me, but I didn't do it, obviously the councillors did it, but thanking council for having representation across all those different areas there. And the numbers, obviously they vary in different areas because of the different size of those communities, but Dubbo here at the dawn service, I would have estimated 3,000 people at the dawn service, and the main service probably getting close to 5,000, maybe even over 5,000. So fantastic numbers. And again, in respect of those various sizes, whether it was, say, 50 at Mumble, as Councillor Ivey mentioned there, or various numbers there, good representation across all of those areas. So thank you to all the councillors who made the effort there, and thank you to Councillor Marn for being in Yarra Valley and representing us over there. So it's good to see that representation across there. Thank you, councillors. The next item under Section 10A of the Local Government Act, that being CCL 23113, has been identified as likely to be discussed in a closed session of council. Can I have someone move this into confidential session? Thank you, Councillor Sherry, seconded by Councillor Black. Since we've had no applications from members of the public to make the representations regarding whether the meeting should be closed to the public, do any members in the public gallery have any comments to make regarding the proposal to hear the items in a closed session of council under Section 10A(4) of the Act? Any representations from the public gallery? There being none. Okay, do you wish to speak on this particular motion, Councillor Chowdhury?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion or debate, councillors, about moving it to confidential? There being none, I put that. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. We'll now move into closed session, the time being 7:12. The streaming will now be turned off. Any members of the public will be asked to leave the chamber. The chamber will be reopened and the live stream restarted after deliberations on this matter, with the resolution to be made public. If there are any members of the public who wish to stay around for that to come afterwards rather than go downstairs in the cold, then I'm sure we could find upstairs somewhere in the warmth of the council building for you to stay in while we deliberate on that, and then you can come back in for the reading of that if you wish to stay to hear the outcome of that particular confidential item. Yes? No? So if you go down, you can leave. The door will be open again. You can come back up. Or, yep. So No further items for consideration in this closed session. Can I ask someone to move us back into open council, please? Thank you, Councillor Showery, seconded by Councillor Goff. Any discussion or debate on that, councillors? About moving back into open session? No. I put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. The council returned to open session at 7:17 p.m. Welcome back. I'll now ask for streaming to be turned back on. That's on. We've got our public members of the gallery back in there. I'll now ask the manager of corporate governance to read the resolution from the confidential session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the item CCL 23113, tender for the heavy patching program Road Maintenance Council contract, RMCC, the council has resolved that that the contract for VP 342823 for the full service for heavy patching, including stabilising pavement on the Golden Highway and the Goolma Road, be awarded to Stabilised Pavements of Australia Proprietary Limited for the amount of $3,773,848.82, including GST. 2, that all documentation in relation to this matter remain confidential to council. And 3, that all documentation in relation to this matter be signed under the common seal of the council.
Thank you, Ms Wade. There are no further items for consideration of the ordinary council meeting. I declare the meeting closed, the time being 7:18 p.m. Web streaming has now been completed. Thank you for your attendance, and thank you for attendance to the public gallery.